Hello everyone, welcome to a new part in Blender archviz tutorial. In today's video we will explain the render settings just for cycles, the render engine. So first of all, I will go to the render properties and change the render engine to cycles. So also if you change the future set to supported, you can use experimental if you want to use a micro displacement future. So you can use the experimental future and change your material properties, for example, in the material tab in the settings, and change the displacement to displacement only or displacement and bump. But in this case, I will not use this feature because the displacement is time consuming and memory consuming. So I have a powerful GPU, so in this case I will use the GPU compute. If you have a powerful CPU, use the CPU. Now for the sampling in the viewport, I will use the presets, the Blender presets. So I will use preview because in the viewport I will use preview. Also I will enable the denoising. In the viewport I will use optics because optics is very fast than open image denoise. But in the opposite, in the render, I will use maybe 4000 or the final preset of Blender, but I can use 1024 samples and set the noise threshold to 0 to make it automatic and to focus a lot in art, not in technical stuff. Also in the denoise, I will use for final render, I will use open image denoise because open image denoise preserve a lot of details than optics. So we finish with sampling. The second important settings is the light path. For this light path, I can use this setup for light bouncing. When lights enter to the apartment, will bounce a lot. So if you want a lot more bounces, you can increase it than this, but in the default or the default you can use these values. But I see in one of Blender conference that if you have a glass material in your scene, so 30 or 32 bounces, it's good for your light path. So I will use the full global illumination, the presets of Blender. So for this, also for the clamping, I will use the same as the indirect light because I have the direct light from the HDRI. So I will use 10 because when you increase this value, you will have much less noise in areas where you have direct light. Also, you can disable these caustics because we don't have a lot of, or maybe we don't have any glasses in our apartment. And if you want the fast render, then use fast GI, but use it carefully. So I will let my settings like this. Also, the next settings is simplify. So I need to use simplify because I have a dense scene with a lot of textures. So I don't want to have problems in the viewport preview. So I want to limit the texture to 1K to not have much texture or GPU memory consuming, but I will let it no limits in the final render. So if you have a poor GPU, you can use 2K, but don't go so much below this value. So the next settings is persistent data. It's for faster render. When you re-render your image, you will not have BVH build or texture build, so you will render directly. So enable this persistent data. Also, you can disable this option, but in my case, I will enable it for better performance. So the next option is the color management. It's very important for realistic results. So I will keep my view transform on filmic. Then when I want to render, I can choose between medium high contrast to high contrast for better render, for better look, but in almost my renders I use high contrast. Then in the lighting parts I will show you how to play around between exposure and gamma to get better lighting and illumination. So this is everything about render settings. It's very easy. You can find another video about this, and this is everything in this video. See you in another videos. Salam.